To everyone who used to follow my post on Reddit, I want to apologize for taking so much to finish this series, and also I want to thank every single one of you for all the love and support that I received back then. I really enjoyed reading your opinions and sharing ideas with all of you on Reddit. So now let's begin with this complete manga versus anime breakdown of the final season part 1 of Attack on Titan. Falco didn't say this during the manga, and I think that is probably a way that MAPPA wants to add mystery for the possible outcomes for part 2 of the final season. These soldiers about to suicide charge aren't shown in the manga, they are just mentioned. This epic scene of Reiner transforming into the armored titan isn't shown in the manga, we just see him talking then appearing, already converted on the ground. In the manga, Reiner never lost his hand during the fight against the Middle East allied forces. This situation was added by MAPPA probably to make the Titans feel weaker than in the first parts of Attack on Titan. Because as you remember, it is mentioned in the final season that the era of Titan domination was going to come to an end. And showing how technology is able to defeat them is an amazing way to make us feel that the world is developing together with the story. This second armored train didn't appear in the manga. And also this train is used by Reiner to fight against the soldiers. In the manga instead he just uses an electric tower. This other perspective of the defeated Middle East allied forces didn't appear in the manga. And Jan being all mysterious also didn't appear at this part of the manga. In the manga, Maga doesn't stare at the sea while speaking, and also there's a map that didn't appear in the anime. During this conversation in the anime, it wasn't mentioned the betrayal of Zeke. In the anime, this scene was made more serious. In the manga, we just get a random troll comment by our beloved monkey. These flashbacks of Zeke fighting the Survey Corps didn't appear in the anime, and this angle of Eren chasing Reiner and the kids was made from other perspective. These compliments of Pika and Galliard didn't appear in the manga, and it's a good way to give more attention to them and also show that they have a close relationship with the candidates. In the manga, Falco starts thinking about Reiner and if he is trustable until he's interrupted by Gabi, but in the anime this didn't appear. I like this scene of the anime where we see the injured soldiers walking. Although I gotta say that in the manga, the condition of the soldiers look way more shocking and it's a better way to show the outcomes of war that Eren talked about later. The flashbacks of Reiner while talking didn't make it into the anime. We just see him talking in the table. In the manga, Reiner's mom is talking to him while he's sitting on her legs. In the anime, she's talking while Reiner is laying in the bed instead. These scenes of the manga where we see the previous warrior candidates being chosen to inherit their titans didn't make it into the anime. In the anime, the transformation of the colossal titan has the nuke effect, similar to the one that appears in the chapter 78 of the manga, while in the manga we see the titan already appearing next to the smoke of the explosion. In the manga, Reiner's mom manipulates him more, telling him that his father might be also praying for the success of him to complete his mission. In the anime, she just says that she will be waiting for him. The scene of Magat showing the warriors where to go didn't appear in the anime, and this flashback of Reiner remembering his mother didn't make it also. We get to see Reiner and Bertolt grabbed into the female titan by a rope while escaping from the pure titans when they reach Paradise, while in the anime we see Reiner and Bertolt while they were attacking Paradise. The following parts of this episode didn't make it into the anime, where we see that while they were fleeing from the titans before reaching Paradise, Annie eventually got tired for running so much. Bertolt and Annie almost died while escaping, and Reiner saved them from being eaten. He leaves Bertolt and Annie in the top of Wall Maria to be sure that they were safe. And during this other flashback that didn't make it into the anime, we see a conversation about the true motivations of the warriors of Marley to begin the second attack against Paradise, and about the reasons behind the attack that didn't appear in the anime. We can see that it's because they want to stop the rumbling from happening and protecting the world from the power of the founder. And all these scenes didn't appear in the anime sadly. In the manga we see a clear look at Eren's face while he's crying. In the anime instead we just see a side view where we can hardly see his face, and there's no Marco flashback. In the anime, this part of the conversation of Eren with Reiner didn't appear, where Eren says that he has to keep moving forward. In the manga, also Falco is thinking about who will inherit the armored titan. Meanwhile, in the anime we see him walking until he stares at the hospital where Eren is. As a final comment for this episode, I like to say that I enjoyed more the way that this part was made by MAPPA, because the front take of Eren looks cooler. I think he looks more angry also. This scene is the same than in the manga, but I just wanted to see Pig again, I'm a Pig sim. In the anime, this dialogue of Willy Tybor saying that there are movements coming from Paradise doesn't appear, and Falco doesn't say that he will keep moving forward in the manga. When Jagger comes to talk with Eren, he says that he heard that Eren only remembers his name. In the anime, he just says that Eren seems to get along with Falco. For the anime, some flashbacks were added to this scene and also the Eye of Jaeger was shown from a closer perspective to express more despair. And about this panel, choose your favorite. I think I prefer the one of the manga for all the memes back then. On the end of this episode, this drunk guy that thought that Sophia was Gabi didn't appear in the manga. And also the scene where Reiner pays the food for everyone in the festival, it's the same in the manga, just that it doesn't have Pieck and Galliard, and they were added for the anime. And as I said before, it's a way that MAPPA wants to show us that they have a very close relationship with all the warrior candidates. In the beginning of the manga, we see a close take on the eyes of Eren and Reiner while they talk. Meanwhile, in the anime, MAPPA decided to work showing their faces completely. This line of Eren didn't appear in the anime. Also, the interaction between Willy and Madame Azumabito appears after the conversation between Eren and Reiner in the beginning of this chapter of the manga. In the anime, this scene appears in the beginning of the episode, maybe to give more focus on the mid-last part of the episode that is more focused in Eren and Reiner. In the manga, Reiner's mom said that Bertolt's dad passed away peacefully in Marley's caring hands, while in the anime she puts more effort to say that he was proud of the sacrifice of Bertolt for Marley. Magat is the one talking about how bad was the place chosen to make the declaration of war in the anime. In the manga, it's the General Calvi the one speaking. This line was also deleted in anime. When the kids are waiting for Willy Tybert's speech, Gabi wonders what could Falco and Reiner be doing. Falco didn't say this in the anime. Probably MAPPA deleted this dialogue because it was a better way to keep Eren and Reiner quiet to create the atmosphere of tension of the episode. Eren doesn't reply this to Reiner in the anime, instead he just says the same as you, making the conversation more dramatic. This other dialogue didn't appear in the anime, and this scene appears in the manga in the half of this chapter. The last two panels don't appear in the anime, and the first two ones appear later after the scene of Pieck and Galliard. Also, there's a scene with Willy and Magat talking that didn't appear in this episode. It was shown later. Eren says that Falco saved him in the manga, and in the anime he just said that he needed help. In the anime, during Willy's Tybert speech, he talks about Eren being able to begin the rumbling and the huge risk that it could mean to the world. In the manga instead, Willy says something similar, but he also adds up that there will never exist a weapon with the power to be able to stop the rumbling. The subs of Falco about stopping Eren didn't appear in the anime. This line also didn't appear in the anime, even if this text is very important to explain the relationship of Eren and Reiner pre and post time skip, and the soldiers trying to reach the location of Reiner and Falco that were killed during the transformation of the Attack Titan didn't appear in the manga. So we see that this scene finally appeared on episode 65. This interaction doesn't appear in the manga. Also, this take isn't a panel of the manga, and it's an awesome take, by the way. I really enjoy it. The hardening ability in the fist of Eren isn't really clearly shown in the manga, and there's a lot of closer highlights in the anime to make you understand that he's using this skill. MAPPA made everything darker in the anime. The takes of crushed people make the attack of Eren look way more cruel than in the manga. The first quick appearance of the Survey Corps is shown from a different angle in the anime. Instead, in the manga they show the Survey Corps but behind Pieck flying. In the manga, the Marleyan army shoots Eren with anti-Titan artillery, and in the anime, Magat tells not to interfere, although they shoot some rounds before, but they stop shooting. When Mikasa is fighting the Warhammer Titan, there's a closer take after she attacks it for the first time, and it looks amazing. Jan didn't have his epic shooting entrance in the anime. Instead, they just show the Survey Corps using Thunder Spears against the Marleyan soldiers. And I'm angry because I really wanted to see Jan having this epic moment that he really deserves as a character. There's more and more takes of the crushed people. MAPPA did a really nice job in this episode displaying the collateral damage of war. In the manga, there's not so many panels showing this in this episode. Gabi's teeth grinding after she witnessed Marleyan soldiers being killed in front of her doesn't appear in the manga. It's a good choice of MAPPA to show more about the rage that she feels after losing Udo and Sofia, and after seeing how Marley is being crushed by Paradis in this attack. Eren bites his hand to transform while jumping from the building to reach the Warhammer Titan hideout. In the anime, Eren instead is just seen jumping and transforming off screen. In the manga, Eren hears probably Galliard and his attack from behind, so he hasn't time to turn around. In the anime, instead, Eren is looking behind already when Galliard tried to attack, but he is still unable to dodge the charge of the Jaw Titan. I know that this part is just a frame, but Levi in the manga is seen with the rage look, And in the anime, in this part, sadly Mappa didn't animate his face like this. Levi descending to the ground after attacking the Zhao Titan didn't appear in the anime, but also has a very smooth and nice animation. In the manga, Galliard flees when he sees Levi and that he's being surrounded. In the anime, he kind of retreats, but he just states that the situation isn't looking good. So as I interpret from this dialogue, Galliard in the anime looked less scared in the beginning than in the manga. In the manga, it looks like he was a coward after seeing Levi. In the anime, he gets scared later when he sees that all the Survey Corps and the Ackermans are charging into him. But he was seen displaying a lot of bravery before. As usual, I love to see Mappa doing this close-up of the eyes. It makes the scenes feel more theatric and increase the tension. This scene of Jan taking cover from the bullets inside a building doesn't appear in the manga. Choose your favorite take. The Beast Titan looks great even if it's CGI. I think the CGI of Mappa was pretty good. I don't really share the opinion that the CGI was lame, like some people say. This scene had different angles, but the perspective is probably an effect that Mappa added to make the ODM gear look more immersive for the watcher. Jan is seen already trying to move to avoid the attack while saying incoming in the anime. In the anime, we see him maintaining the same direction until the scene changes into 6th view, and then we see the Survey Corps evading the attack. Mappa kept the Gavi's anger for this scene. In the manga, we could see that she was way more confused than in the anime. Here I find two different approaches to these scenes. Personally, I like more the way this scene is displayed by Isayama in the manga. At least from my own perspective, I see Levi's way to fight in ODM gear spinning like a Beyblade. In the anime, this isn't clearly seen. The pace is too fast, but I also understand that Mappa might have wanted to show that Levi is incredibly fast. Also, the closer look in his eyes is not so good compared to the rage expression in the manga. Anyways, I could also be exaggerating because Levi is one of my favorite characters and I just want him to look the best that he could be. In the manga, Levi doesn't throw his sword before throwing the satchel charge or whatever it is inside of the Beast Titan. Also in this panel, when he's seen ready to throw the satchel charge, he's seen doing this while still holding the sword. In the anime, we see that he has nothing in his right hand. This perspective after the Beast Titan neck is detonated doesn't appear in the manga. And this other scene where Sacha is staring at the car titan after killing Carlo doesn't appear in the manga. And once again, in the manga, Jan shoots the car titan from the side of the building, and in the anime he's sliding while attacking. But I'm still angry because we don't get the scene that I mentioned previously, but it's okay, this scene looks cool, you know, looks very cool. There is no dialogue in the Falco scene trying to protect Peak in the manga. In the anime we can see Falco saying, "Don't shoot, please, stop." In the manga, there's a small flashback of Galliard while thinking about Zeke and Peak. Zeke and Peak, it sounds fun. In the anime, we just see him cursing Eren while thinking about them. In the anime, after Mikasa cuts off the Zhao Titan's leg, he falls next to Eren, but in the anime we see that he falls while staring at him directly. In the manga, he falls in an opposite direction. In this scene when Galliard is saying that they gotta be kidding him, in the manga we see the eyes of him as a person. And in the anime we see the eyes of the Zhao Titan. When Eren is about to finish the Warhammer Titan, we can see that Mikasa is covering a part of her face with her sword, while in the anime we see her staring at it. The following scene was added by Mappa to give more tension to the fight between Reiner and Eren. There's also changes in the dialogues of Eren. In the manga he seems way more focused on leaving because the job is done. In the anime Eren stops the battle because the Survey Corps and him are out of strength already. Mappa did a closer take on Jan and the Survey Corps flying close to the Zeppelin during this scene, while Isayama preferred to show it from a different perspective. Mappa kept making Gabi look more fierce and angry during every episode, something that Isayama might have wanted to fix in the anime, because in the manga she seems more confused and in shock for every event happening nearby her. These are the panels of the first interaction of Emma in the anime, and it's my idea or Mikasa's nose seems a little too big. Mappa kept being loyal to the style of highlighting faces from closer angles than in the manga. This side take of the soldiers and Levi talking to Eren doesn't appear in the manga, and Falco having this flashback during his conversation with Reiner before Gabi tries to avoid the Zeppelin shows two eyes in the manga, and in the anime they show one eye. What a difference. In the scene when Jan and Sasha notice that something is coming to the Zeppelin, in the anime we see once again closer takes of their faces. In the manga we get a wider take. The punches against Gabi and Falco didn't appear in the manga. We just see the group of furious soldiers going over them. And I'm happy to see Gabi being beaten. Not Falco, you know, because Falco is a good boy. When the Zeppelin leaves with Falco and Gabi boarding it, on the manga there's a panel where we see Colt staring at the ship, and in the anime this didn't happen. In the manga we see Levi asking who are these brats, while in the anime he say who are these kids. It looks less Levi in my opinion. This scene of Eren talking to Levi and Hangi has a different angle in the anime, but both are pretty good for me. Isayama was very merciful with Levi's hike in the manga, but in the anime, Mappa was merciless. Just look at that minion, guys. This close-up of Armin's and Mikasa's face crying over Sasha's death didn't appear in the manga, and also this moment where we see the tears of Armin falling over her face didn't appear in the manga. Hangi doesn't say anything in the anime, she just remains silent and in shock. Instead, in the manga, she's like, what? And here we see Eren's reaction to Sasha's death. Now focusing more on this panel, I think that not highlighting so much the border of the mouth was a very good choice of the anime. Since in the manga there was always a lot of debate if Eren was enjoying this because he seemed to be smiling. I feel that the drawing was made better and he doesn't seem to be laughing of it. Also, we must remember that this scene is loyal to the season 2 of the anime when Hannes dies and Eren has a mental breakdown. So you can feel the despair and guilt in Eren more than a laugh about some of his beloved friends dying. So on episode 68, we see that Mappa is changing the perspectives during the story as they used to do. This take on the Attack Titan also seems different in the anime. In the scene when Levi and Hangi are using Niccolo to convince other Marleyans to join the Alliance of Paradise, we see that take of Hangi and Niccolo from very close in the manga. In the anime we just get to see it from far away most of the time. This scene also was shown from behind the soldier, and in the manga we could get to see him screaming while seeing his face. Before we get to the scene of Hangi seeing the gun that looks like a Mauser C96, which also appears in the anime, Mappa added a previous scene with Hangi pointing the gun at herself, which seems something more loyal to her crazy attitude, you know, because Hangi is just so special and funny. There's a flashback in the manga while Yelena talks about her past in the Marleyan army. In the anime we don't see this, instead they just show the face of Onyankopon. In the anime the interruptions while Hangi speaks appear before she talks about Zeke's intention. In the manga they interrupt her after she finishes explaining everything. Once again, in the manga there's something where they show that Zeke wants to be introduced to his half-brother Eren, while in the anime the scene didn't appear. We just see the one when Zeke talks about his plan that needs a Royal Blood Titan and the Founder Titan. I wish Mappa showed this panel in the style of the manga, but well, whatever. The transformation of Armin was shown with a lot of effects that didn't let us see very well the figure of the Colossal Titan. In this part in the manga there's some flashbacks while Armin talks about the enemies of Eldia, and that not everyone is an enemy. In the anime we see Armin talking. On the manga there's this dialogue in the scene where Onyankopon shows the Survey how he's built a port. In the anime there's no dialogue until Sasha asks him about his skin. There's a change of dialogue here also, that instead of saying "stop eating like a pig, Sasha," Niccolo is saying "learn some manners." The scene where the Emma trio is practicing their shooting has a different perspective in the anime, and there's more changes of perspective in this scene like this one. This part showing Eren while Armin is saying that he doesn't understand him anymore doesn't appear in this part of the manga, it is shown later, and this moment with the soldier hitting Niccolo doesn't appear now. In the manga, Pixis replies to Yelena after she says that they will dine at the same table again soon. In the anime, this scene finishes when Yelena finishes talking. Mappa keeps focusing the anger of Gabi against Eren. In the manga, we don't see this dialogue of her mentioning Eren, instead we just keep seeing that she's very scared and confused all the time. And for the final comparison of this episode, choose your favorite once again, the Shad manga Eren versus the Shad Mappa Eren. On episode 69, Mappa did a close take on the eyes of Eren to make him look even more angry. In the manga he looks more serious than angry in this scene. Mappa also changed a little the perspective of these moments with Hangi. There's a line of Yelena saying to Mikasa that Kiyomi resembles the mother of Mikasa, while on the anime this scene was deleted. Mappa changed the perspective of this scene once again, but I guess it's better. I prefer to see Shad Eren with his angry look than Hangi. A detail that a lot of people noticed and liked from this panel is that the effect of the Titan's transformation added in the anime was amazing, and this looked way more frightening in the anime than in the manga. On this scene there's also a different perspective, and let me ask you once again, in this manga versus anime comparison of these panels, which one do you prefer? I like more the ones in the manga, although I feel that Eren and Mikasa look way more wholesome in the anime. In the anime there's no dialogue on this scene, and this other scene didn't appear in the manga, where Connie suggested that it might be necessary to kill Eren, and the final moment of the episode where we see the soldiers drinking wine didn't appear in the manga now. On Ep 70, the part where Gabi and Falco hit the guard's body didn't appear in the anime. In the manga there's a panel where we see Falco stopping Gabi from throwing the rock. In the anime we see them staring after each other when they are invited to eat some food. In the manga, in the scene when Falco tries to act like everything is fine, he just thanks for the food. In the anime, he also tells Gabi to eat some food while he does this. Mappa also did a great job at displaying Gabi and her feels. It's easier to understand the emotion that she's going through thanks to this kind of zoom-ins. When Flock speaks with Hangi, he calls the future of Eldia as the new Eldian Empire. Hangi says the nation of Eldia, a line that doesn't appear in the anime during this interaction between them. On the first part with the hordes, there's a take of the horde head from the front in the anime, which makes it look funnier. In the manga, this funny angle doesn't appear, and this other one either. Falco doesn't say this line in the anime. And Kaya also doesn't say this. In the manga there's flashbacks about Sasha that didn't appear in the anime. And also on the manga, Maga talked about the effect of Willy Tybor and his speech to the world before he mentions about the global offensive against Paradise. In the anime he doesn't mention Willy and there's no flashback. These lines were added by Mappa. In the manga, Gallier and Pig don't say anything like this. And as I always like to make for this episode, choose your favorite angle of Reiner talking. The expression of Hitch in the anime on episode 71 looked way more angry in some moments. In the manga we see a more neutral expression by her. In the anime we see more cartels during the protest. In the manga there's also a few but not so many. This part of the Yelena's flashback doesn't appear in the manga. I mean it does, but it displays the scene where both of them appear, not the scene of Eren from the front. We see a most wide take about Pixies listening to Yelena in this scene, where we can see both guards that are behind him. In the manga, we can see Eren in a flashback while Yelena talks about him possessing the Founder. In the anime, we just see Yelena and there's no flashback of Eren. This isn't really important, but the few scenes of the cute squirrel didn't appear in the manga. And I want to ask you a question very seriously. Is the squirrel a Jaggerist? Maybe. Hangi looks more serious in the anime. In the manga she looks more crazy. Personally I think that the manga fits more the personality of her and the way to be of Hangi. Even if the scene seems to be fit better like Mappa did it, I think Hangi's personality should have been like in the manga, eccentric as usual. In the manga we see the scene of Yelena shooting someone. In the anime instead we see the dead body of someone that was killed by her. This dialogue doesn't appear in the anime, and there's different takes for this scene also. In the anime, Armin and Mikasa look way more in shock than in the manga when they say that Thick might be controlling Eren. The explosion looked way more massive in the anime, and as I said before, people were using cartels in the protest, so it's easier to notice this in this scene. The anime really censored this moment, and I think that it's an okay decision. I mean, the manga panel looks very scary, even for me. Flock doesn't say that they act because of the government actions in the anime. And Mappa also did a different perspective here that looks great, I think. And choose your favorite chat, Eren. I think we all know that the one of the manga was better, and there's more different angles for this scene of Pixies. In the manga, Armin is the one who asks if Hangi has any leads. In the anime, Jan asks Hangi if she's worried about something. In the anime, this dialogue doesn't appear, that is the scene when Gabi and Falco arrive at the restaurant. And in the manga, the scene of Pig following the Survey Corps appeared before than in the anime. It appeared when Mikasa and Armin were speaking with Hangi and Onyankopon in the cart. On episode 72, Mappa added more scenes of the villagers being affected by the gas of the Beast Titan. During this conversation of Zeke and Levi, the anime showed the scene from a longer distance. In the manga, Gabi says that a Marleyan and an Eldian couldn't be in love. Mappa changed the poses of the Survey Corps while they speak with Niccolo. In the manga this looks way more casual. Niccolo looks more angry in the anime when he's being grabbed by Jan. In the manga he looks way more scared about him. Mappa used the previous panel with no dialogue to begin the flashback of Sasha's father. In the manga it begins while the scene shows the whole room instead of just a close take of the face of Mr. Browse. This flashback scene of Sasha and her dad hunting didn't appear in the anime. And on this scene, the knife looked way more close to Gabi's head. And wait, what the hell is Armin doing with the knife from the anime? In the flashback of Niccolo, Mappa added more scenes of the city before Marley attacked it with the power of 6 spinal fluid. And choose your favorite Eren, menacing Armin and Mikasa and Gabi. In the manga, Onyankopon calls Hangi. In the anime, Hangi and the Survey Corps here scream outside. The reaction of Flock feels different in the anime, more neutral. In the manga, he looks more surprised. And once again, choose your favorite panel. Eren looks way more depressed in the anime than in the manga, although he still looks sad in the manga. In the manga, Armin asks if Eren was with Flock in the beginning of this scene. In the anime instead we just see him talking with Gabi and Mikasa. The anime also changed the perspective for this scene where we see the tables from far away. In the anime we see the scene where Hangi and the rest are being taken into a car by the Jaggerist. In the manga instead we see that Flock is taking Hangi into the car while still pointing that sort of Luger pistol into her. Mappa changed this panel of Isayama, where as I remember the fandom used to make a lot of memes about how Eren looked. Being honest, he looks really funny, like if he's just toying with the chair. And a funny detail is that the scene that I say that they deleted from the previous panel was added for a different scene, and Eren looks better in this, doesn't look funny like in the manga. I'm sorry Isayama sensei, but it was a really bad panel drawing. And there's different perspective from these parts, as we see here in Eren's take, and later with Armin. And about the designs of the characters, I think Mikasa looks great on this panel. She looks way more realistic and her reactions feel more natural. Even if they improve plenty of things for this episode, I think that as on this panel, I feel that Eren looks way too calm instead of displaying anger like in the manga. I really think that Eren needed to look more like in the manga for this part of the episode, because he feels more loyal to being angry as he seemed to be in the previous episodes. And we can see that Mappa kept changing the perspective for these panels, like this one of Mikasa. When Eren calls Mikasa a slave, we see Armin screaming at Eren from a closer take in the anime. And with Eren they did something similar. Instead of showing both eyes as in the manga, they just show one. When Mikasa stops Armin from punching Eren, there's another way to show this scene in the anime, where they just show the table from behind and the chair falling off. And for this panel, I won't really ask you guys to choose your favorite because I already know which one it is, you pervs. But now being serious, what the hell, Mappa? You just made Armin look all calm and enjoying this tackle. I mean, Isayama did a way better job showing his reaction. But the anime scene is already so iconic that I won't criticize it. I just join the Armin simps. This moment of Eren dodging the second punch of Armin didn't appear in the manga. Instead, they just show the soldiers coming in when Armin drops off the table, and in the anime they appear after Eren is already punching Armin. The moment when Eren starts beating Armin, the anime shows to change a little the scenes, but they're basically the same as we can see here in these panels that I'm showing right now. This scene of Zeke's glasses didn't appear in the manga, and Levi here appears from a closer take on this scene of the manga. Levi looks way more shocked on this panel, and a random comment for the following part of this episode is that ass from that pure titan of the anime. I think he's doing a lot of squats, you know. The conversation of Eren and Zeke that appears in the flashback while Zeke is escaping didn't appear in the manga. During this panel from the manga, Zeke says this before the plot twist of Levi surviving and attacking Zeke. In the anime, he says this during the beginning of his monologue while escaping. The manga panel for this is way better than the moment of the anime, I think. I like the angry face of Levi and the blood in his face just showing from very close, you know. When Zeke asks if Levi killed his comrades and talk about being poor creatures or poor things, in the manga we see a panel with the dead titans when he says this. Meanwhile, Mappa in the anime shows to show the face of the Beast Titan following the movements of Levi. And as I always like to do for these episodes, choose your favorite. In my case, I prefer the closer perspective of the manga. Levi looks way more badass. I feel that is a wasted potential for this panel. In the manga, Flush asks Shadis that they call them the Jaguarists and says that they will occupy the facility. In the anime, Flock enters and says directly that the Jaguarists are taking control. The chapter 114 of the manga didn't begin with this panel. Instead, they just show us the city first, and later they show Zeke when he was a boy. The manga used two perspectives for this scene. The anime just shows one from the stairs. In the manga, Miss Jagger is telling Zeke that she prepared his favorite pie. In the manga, she just tells him to come in. In the manga, Zeke doesn't drop the top part of the bolt action rifle. Instead, we just see him confused about what the hell to do with it. The great animation of Mappa made Zeke look way more nostalgic while staring at the kid playing with his father. Mappa chose to animate these panels in one single scene, when Zeke is playing with Mr. K-Saber, or Saber, I don't know how to say it. I will say K-Saber, I like how it sounds. After K-Saber compliments Zeke, there's a scene where we see that they kept throwing the ball at each other. In the anime they just skipped this panel. In the manga, we see Grisha screaming and Zeke crying in the same panel. In the anime, they didn't show Grisha, and instead we just focus on Zeke and how he's listening to his father screaming. This moment has a different perspective, and I think that during the discussion of Zeke with Grisha in the table, the manga had more perspectives for this moment. Mappa used these panels for later, I think. They didn't completely delete them, they just reorganized how they will work parts of the storyboard. These panels don't appear in the anime, or at least they don't appear in the same scene where Grisha and Dean are screaming at Zeke. As a general improvement for the whole anime season compared to the manga, we keep seeing how the emotions of the character are better shown throughout the art of the anime. In the manga we get to see Kei Saber screaming at Zeke while he's saying that he was used by his parents. Instead, in the anime, during this dialogue we see how Grisha and Dina are caught by local Marleyans while Zeke remembers the word that Kei Saber said to him. And once again, choose your favorite panel. I think both of them look great. Both the anime and the manga did a great job with this scene. Zeke, after the time skip in his memories, look more mature in the anime than in the manga. This question of Zeke to Kei Saber appeared almost during the beginning of the conversation in the manga. In the anime instead it appears almost at the end. In the anime, Kei Saber says that his life had been fun while grabbing the ball while playing with Zeke. In the actual timeline. Meanwhile, in the manga we see that he says these lines while he's catching the ball, but in the past when his wife killed his son and killed herself after that. As another personal opinion, I feel that Mappa lost a lot of potential for this scene by changing the original idea of Isayama. In the manga we see how the past and the time skip of the memories are mixed, because we see how Kei Saber grabs the ball from his own memories in the past, and when he holds it, he is back in the present of that dream, while crying and seeing his dead family next to him, as a way to make you understand more and feel the pain that he's going through from so many years before. In the anime we get the same kind of feeling, but seeing him cry remembering. It doesn't have the same effect as seeing Kei Saber and how he's still living this pain from the past in his actual life, and what a best way to display this than showing the past mixed up with the present timeline's memories now. In the anime we jump into the scene where Kei Saber is explaining to Zeke how the authorization could work. In the manga instead we go back into the original timeline of the story where he's still a hostage of Levi in the cart. In the manga the scene from the anime also appears, but in chapter 115. The anime instead chose to use chapter 114 for this scene to make the story flow more naturally. This affected a lot the end of the episode, since in the manga the memories appear while Zeke is about to die after the explosion. Instead, in the anime he remembers all of this while being unconscious before the explosion. These panels from the manga appear in the anime, but they skipped all the dialogue that appears in these parts, and instead they used the dialogue of the next panel with the previous panel as in this example. So these lines of Zeke saying that Eren is his little brother didn't appear actually. In this scene Mappa used this different perspective from the one in the manga, where we see that there's a closer take of the faces of Eren and Zeke. When Eren talks about the past in the anime he remembers while staring upside, while in the manga he's staring to the ground. Random observation. In the manga there's a flashback showing the memories of Grisha while Eren talks about them. In the anime instead they didn't show this and they just kept showing the Eren's hand during this scene. They added also this cool scene of Eren while remembering as some sort of tribute for us the fandom for not showing us the flashbacks. As I mentioned before, in the manga these memories appear inside the squares, showing us that these are the last memories of Zeke before he's about to die. The anime couldn't do this because of the change of the order of the story. Since Zeke isn't dying in the anime, we see this as a flashback while he's being unconscious. Eren looked more angry in the manga than in the anime during this conversation. And after Zeke wakes up in the anime, we're still in the scene before the cart explodes, and we see Levi talking to Zeke while staring at him in a closer take. Instead, in the manga he was just saying this while still riding the cart. And once again, choose your favorite. I prefer the manga panel on this scene, because Levi looks way more badass while he talks to Zeke, and Zeke looks way more scared. And on this following panel I also feel that Isayama did a better job, although Mappa added these moments before the explosion where we see these cool particles of the rain in 4K. And finally, Mappa used it for the explosion scene, a closer take showing how Levi's body sent through the air and how his horse ends up burning to death. Meanwhile, in the manga we see everything from far away as we see the body of Zeke and Levi flying away as a result of the cart exploding. And we are on the final episode of the part 1 of the final season. My throat is almost dying, but I want to keep showing you the manga comparison, so let's continue. This scene was censored, although the art of Mappa is great as always. Look at these pretty flowers. When Zeke was about to die, he remembers the last conversation with Kei Saber, and as I explained before, this scene was shown way before in the anime. So since this was already shown before in this occasion, they rush into his vision about the girl that was watching him. And there we see another censored scene where we don't really see the ear of Zeke with those cuts. When that mysterious titan appears and opens up her belly, we don't really see the intestine coming out from the belly, you know. In this scene we don't get to see the face of the commander who betrayed Pixis. In the anime, after the scene of Yelena talking to Pixis, we jump into a scene when Yelena shoots the Jaggeris inside of the jail. In the manga instead they show the scene from the beginning of this episode where we see Hangi finding the thunder spear that exploded next to Levi. This scene of Connie screaming at on Yankopon also has a different perspective. This other scene has the same change where we see Connie and Jan seeing Jelena while Jan is talking to her. And this other one, and another one, and another one. There's plenty of changes for this episode. It's the same dialogue, but they just changed the takes. On this part, Mappa changed the order of the following panels for this scene. The dialogue also remains the same as before, just that they mixed it up a little, but in the end it's the same outcome. By the way, look at that Connie face. I will have the same face if someone insults Sasha like that. I mean, Sasha was just a great girl. The anime changed the perspective of this scene in order to censor it a little, although there's still some blood in the anime. It wasn't completely censored, and this one was completely changed, because in the manga we see the corpse of the soldier that Jelena killed, while there's blood coming from his head and some parts of his brain, I think. In the anime instead, we see how she talks instead of showing that gore panel. The next scene in the anime appeared in the previous episode of the manga, on episode 115. It's another change in the timeline in the manga in order to make the story flow naturally, as I said like 4 times before. This scene was also censored, where Isayama showed the soldier dying in the ground while Pig asked if Eren is actually Eren. In the anime, they show the face of Pig while talking instead of showing the poor soldier being like, my throat. In the manga, when Pig tells Gabi to take her finger off the trigger, we actually see a panel of her finger. In the anime, they don't show this. In this scene, when Pig asks Eren if he has another plan under his sleeve, she is saying this while leaning in the wall. In the anime, she is just standing next to the door. During this scene of the conversation between Gabi and Pig, we see the face of Pig in the manga, while in the anime they show Gabi's face instead than the one of Pig as in the manga. The perspective of this scene of Jelena talking about the real plans of Zeke and Eren were changing. In the manga, Eren stares at Gabi while he answers her question about where Falco is. In the anime, he just talks without looking at her. This moment also doesn't show the face of Pig in the anime, while she tells Eren about how she suspected of Zeke from years ago. And this moment of Pig and Gabi walking to the point at where the enemies of Eren were also had a different perspective. In the anime, after Pig points at Eren and says that he's the enemy, we get to see how Pig and Gabi move when the Jaw Titan is about to attack. And in the manga instead, we see this together with the scene of the Jaw Titan behind them attacking Eren. This moment didn't appear in the manga after the transformation of Eren. Instead, the manga just shows the conversation of Gabi and Pig while they are next to the fight that is about to begin. The anime changed this scene slightly. In the manga, we hear that line while we see Reiner. In the anime instead, they show us this panel of Reiner before, and they show it once again for the final scene when we see Eren inside the Attack Titan. Eren looks way more angry in the manga. In the anime, he isn't so angry, and he also says, "Bring it on." I would have liked a lot if the anime used this style for the last scene, just showing both Eren and Reiner at the same time while preparing for the battle. And this is the whole final season part 1 of Attack on Titan manga versus anime comparison, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this analysis. It was a very long and tiring work to do, but I feel happy to finally be able to finish this and sharing it with everyone. I will be back doing these comparisons for part 2 of the final season, and if you want to support me, be sure to like this video or share it with your friends. And maybe subscribe if you want to see more content from my channel. I normally post weekly videos on Fridays about many mangas and animes like Attack on Titan, Chainsaw Man, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and more. As I said in the beginning of this video, thanks a lot for the support, and I think that I will never have finished this series if it wasn't for the amazing help of the Attack on Titan community from Reddit, and also to my girlfriend that she was always cheering me up and telling me to keep working on this. And as I always say, guys, thank you and see you soon.